Welcome back to the channel. Before we begin tonight's chilling story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new horror tale. And I have a question for you. What city are you watching from, and what time is it there right now? Leave your answer in the comments below. I read your comments with great excitement, and I love seeing where everyone is watching from around the world. Now dim the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin tonight's terrifying story. I was staying at my mother's house in Mishawaka, Indiana, for 2 weeks while she recovered from knee surgery at my aunt's place in Fort Wayne. I was 27, working billing for a dental office, and I had just ended a long relationship, so being alone in a quiet house felt better than sitting in my own apartment with boxes of my ex's things still in the closet. The first weird thing happened on a Tuesday morning while I was making coffee before work. I looked out the kitchen window and saw one of my mother's patio chairs sitting in the middle of the backyard, turned around so it faced the window like someone had been sitting there watching me. It was one of those cheap green plastic chairs. We kept 4 of them stacked under the little covered patio. This one was about 20 feet away from the house. The grass under it was still damp from the sprinklers, and the chair legs had made for clean marks in the mud. I stood there with my coffee mug in my hand, staring at it. My first thought was wind, but there hadn't been a storm. Then I thought maybe a neighborhood kid had moved it. My mother lived near a middle school, and kids cut through the alley behind the houses all the time. They left bottles, wrappers, sometimes knocked over trash cans. A chair in the yard wasn't worth making a big deal about. I was running late anyway. I went outside, dragged the chair back, and stacked it with the others. When I did, I noticed the chair was wet on the seat, but not from the sprinkler. The sprinkler didn't reach that far. It looked like someone had sat there while wearing damp clothes. Again, I made myself move on. I was tired. I had barely slept the night before. I had just spent the evening sorting through my mother's pill schedule and arguing with my ex over text about a coffee table neither of us wanted. I wanted the morning to be normal. That night after work, I stopped at Kroger, picked up soup and paper towels for my mom, then came back around 7. The house was dark except for the porch light. My mother had one of those automatic timers, so it clicked on every night at 6:30. I parked in the driveway and saw the porch light was off. I sat in my car for a minute. The windows of the house were black. Nothing moved. I told myself the bulb had burned out. My mother used old bulbs until they died. I carried the bags to the door and used my key. Inside, everything looked normal. The house smelled like the lemon cleaner my mom used on everything. The TV was still on the local news because I always left it on low when I went to work. I put the groceries away and checked the porch light from inside. The switch was on. When I unscrewed the bulb, it came out loose in my hand. It wasn't burned out. It had been unscrewed just enough to turn off. I remember standing on that porch with the bulb in my fingers, trying to decide if I should feel scared or embarrassed. I didn't want to be the kind of person who panicked over a porch light. It was probably vibration. Maybe I had bumped it with a grocery bag the day before. Maybe it was just old. I screwed it back in. It worked. Later that night, around 11, I heard something that sounded like plastic scraping against concrete. It was faint, but the house was quiet, so I heard it right away. I muted the TV and listened. Scrape. Then nothing. I went to the kitchen and looked out the window. The backyard was too dark to see clearly. My mother's yard had a privacy fence on both sides, but the back fence was low and old. Behind it was a narrow alley, then a vacant lot with weeds and 2 broken sheds that nobody seemed to own. At first, I saw nothing. Then the motion light over the patio clicked on. One green plastic chair was in the grass again. This time it was closer to the house. I stayed away from the window. I leaned sideways from behind the wall and looked through the edge of the curtain. I saw a shape move near the back fence. It was not a kid. Whoever it was had broad shoulders and was wearing a dark hoodie or jacket. They didn't run. They just stepped back into the shadow behind the fence like they knew exactly where the motion light ended. I locked the back door even though it was already locked. Then I checked the front door. Then I checked the windows in the living room, the laundry room, and my mother's bedroom. All locked. I wanted to call the police, but I didn't know what to say. Someone moved a chair. Someone was probably in the alley. There were kids back there sometimes. Homeless people cut through there too. I didn't have a description. I didn't even know if the person was still there. Instead, I called my friend Lena. She answered half asleep and said, "What's wrong?" I told her about the chair and the person by the fence. She said, "Do you want me to stay on the phone?" I said yes. For about 20 minutes, we stayed on the phone while I sat in the hallway with the lights off. Nothing happened. No footsteps. No scraping. No tapping on windows. Eventually I felt ridiculous. I told Lena I was fine and I was going to bed. I did not sleep much. The next morning, I found something else. My mother's trash bin had been rolled from the side of the house to the curb, even though trash day wasn't until Friday. It was Wednesday. I hadn't moved it. The lid was open. Inside, the top bag had been ripped open. Not torn by animals. Open neatly. Someone had taken out papers and put them back wrong. I saw an old envelope with my mother's name on it, a pharmacy receipt, and one of my work pay stubs. I had tossed it out the day before. The pay stub had my name and the dental office address. I took it inside and shredded it. Then I went around the house again, checking the doors, windows, and the little garage service door. Nothing looked forced. That was the moment I almost called my mom, but she was already stressed and recovering, and I didn't want her trying to come home early. I also didn't want to admit I was scared in a house I had grown up visiting. I told myself the trash thing was probably someone looking for cans or bottles. People went through trash bins all the time. When I left for work, I made sure the porch light was screwed in tight. I also closed every curtain in the house. At lunch, I checked my phone and saw 3 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. No voicemail. Around 2, the dental office phone rang. I answered the way I always did. "Good afternoon, Maple Creek Dental. This is Carla." There was breathing for a second. Then a man said, "Is Elaine home?" Elaine is my mother's name. I froze, but I kept my voice normal. "Who's calling?" He paused. "Her son. My mother only has daughters." I said, "You have the wrong number." He didn't hang up right away. I could hear traffic or wind on his end. Then he said, "You're at work until 5, right?" I hung up. I walked straight into my manager's office and shut the door. I told her someone was calling about my mom and knew I was at work. She looked scared in a way that made me feel worse. She told me to call the police non-emergency line. The officer I spoke to was polite, but there wasn't much he could do from that call alone. He told me to keep records of the calls and call 911 if I saw someone on the property again. He also said not to go home alone if I felt unsafe. That should have been enough for me to ask Lena to come over or to sleep at her place. But I didn't. I was tired, embarrassed, and I kept thinking about money. I had agreed to house sit for my mother because I couldn't afford to take time off or board her cat. I also didn't want to leave the house empty after someone had clearly been around it. So I went home. I parked on the street instead of the driveway so I could see the front of the house before getting out. The porch light was on. The curtains were closed. The trash bin was still at the curb where I had left it that morning because I hadn't wanted to touch it again. Everything was quiet. Inside, the cat was hiding under my mother's bed, which was unusual, but not impossible. He was old and hated changes. I checked the doors. All locked. I checked the windows. All locked. Then I went into the kitchen. There was a chair in the backyard again. It was placed so close to the kitchen window that the back of it almost touched the siding. On the seat was a folded piece of paper. I did not go outside. I stood behind the kitchen wall and stared at that paper through the curtain gap. The sun was almost down. The motion light had not come on yet, so the chair sat there in gray light, facing me. My phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. I didn't answer. A text came through a second later. "Why do you keep moving it?" I backed away from the window, so fast I bumped into the kitchen table. The next text came while I was still staring at the screen. "Leave it where I put it." I called 911. The dispatcher asked where I was, if I was alone, if the person was inside, if I had a weapon, if the doors were locked. I answered as quietly as I could. She told me officers were on the way, and to get to a room with a lock if I could. My mother's bathroom had a small window, but it faced the side yard. The bedroom had a door lock, but the lock was weak. I chose the laundry room because it had a solid door and the door to the garage was inside it. If something happened, I thought I could get into the garage and out through the big door. While I moved down the hallway, the dispatcher told me to stay on the line. Then I heard the back door handle move. Not a bang. Not a kick. Just a slow turn. The lock held. The handle turned again. Then I heard a soft tap on the glass of the kitchen window. 3 taps. A pause. 3 more taps. The dispatcher said, "Is that him?" I whispered, "Yes." She told me to stay quiet. I got into the laundry room and locked the door. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. I crouched between the washer and dryer, with my shoulder against the wall. For a few seconds, all I heard was my own breathing and the dispatcher's voice telling me help was close. Then footsteps crossed the back patio. Slow. Heavy. They stopped outside the laundry room window. That window was small and high, with frosted glass. It was used for ventilation more than anything else. I had checked it earlier. It was locked. A shadow crossed the glass. The person outside tried to slide it open. When it didn't move, he pressed on it with both hands. The old frame creaked. The dispatcher heard it. "Stay where you are," she said. I didn't answer. The frame creaked again, harder this time. Then he spoke. He was right outside the window. "Carla." My name sounded flat coming from him. Not angry. Not excited. Just quiet. "Carla, I know you're in there." I covered my mouth with my hand. He said, "Open the door." I didn't. The window frame popped slightly. Not open, but enough that I knew it was old. He could maybe break it if he tried. I looked at the garage door behind me. If I opened it, it would make noise. The garage had a manual release, and the big door was loud. But if he broke the window, I would be trapped. Then I heard something that made me move. The back door handle turned again. But this time it sounded different. Like he was not trying the handle. Like he was testing something in the lock. I unlocked the door to the garage as quietly as I could and slipped through. The garage was dark. I left the laundry room door mostly closed behind me, but not latched. I didn't want the click. The garage smelled like gasoline and cardboard. My mother's car was at my aunt's, so the garage was empty except for boxes and a lawn mower. The dispatcher was still on the phone. I whispered, "I'm in the garage." She said, "Can you exit safely?" I didn't know. The side garage door opened into the narrow strip between my mother's house and the neighbor's fence. The big garage door faced the driveway, but opening it would be loud and slow. I chose the side door. When I stepped outside, the air felt freezing even though it was summer. I moved along the side of the house, crouched under the bathroom window, and reached the front corner. I could see the street. No police yet. I could also see the shadow of the man on the front porch. He had moved around the house faster than I thought. He was standing by the front door, looking down at something in his hand. A key ring, maybe, or a small tool. I could not see his face because his hood was up. I was stuck at the corner of the house with no cover. Then a car turned onto the street. Headlights swept across the yard. The man looked up. I ran. I didn't run toward the street. I ran across my mother's front yard and straight into the neighbor's driveway 2 houses down, where an older man named Mr. Darnell had his garage open. I didn't even know him well. I just knew he sat in there at night listening to baseball games. I screamed, "Call 911." He jumped up from his lawn chair. I must have looked insane, barefoot, holding my phone, crying without sound. The man from my mother's porch did not chase me. He walked away. That scared me more than if he had run. He just stepped off the porch, crossed the yard, and went toward the alley between the houses. Mr. Darnell grabbed a metal rake and stood in front of me like he was ready to fight somebody, which now sounds almost funny, but at the time I could barely stand. The police arrived maybe 2 minutes later. They searched the yard, the alley, and the vacant lot, but they didn't find him. They did find the paper on the chair. It was my work schedule printed from a screenshot. Not the whole schedule, just my name, the office hours, and the days I worked late. I had posted a photo on Instagram a week earlier of a coffee my coworker bought me, and part of the schedule board was visible in the background. I hadn't even noticed it. The police also found the back door lock scratched around the keyhole. There were footprints in the wet dirt behind the fence, and a path through the weeds in the vacant lot. Mr. Darnell told them he had seen a man walking through that lot more than once that week, but he thought it was someone collecting scrap metal. The unknown number was never traced to anyone useful. The officer said it came from an app number. They took a report, and a patrol car came by a few times over the next week, but no arrest came from it. I stayed at Lena's apartment that night. My mom came home early 2 days later, even though I begged her not to. She was furious, not at me, but at the whole situation. We cleaned the house top to bottom. I deleted most of my social media. My manager moved the schedule board away from the front desk. Mr. Darnell and 2 other people on the street cut down the weeds in the vacant lot themselves after the city ignored their calls. For a long time, the image I couldn't stop thinking about was not the man at the window or the porch. It was that chair, just a cheap plastic chair facing the kitchen. It looked harmless until I understood what it meant. Someone had found a place to sit and watch my normal life like it belonged to him. I don't open curtains at night anymore. I don't post pictures from work. And when something in my space has been moved, I don't waste time trying to make it sound reasonable. A locked door is not rude. It is a line, and some people only show you who they are by trying to cross it. Story 2. The laundromat on Fulton Street stayed open until midnight, but after 10 it felt like nobody worked there, even though there was always supposed to be an attendant in the back office. I was 22 at the time, living in Fresno, taking classes at community college during the day and working mornings at a bakery. I did laundry late because the machines were cheaper after 9, and because my apartment building had 1 washer for 12 units and it was always broken. I was tired, broke, and too stubborn to ask my roommate to come with me. That night, I had just loaded my uniforms into a dryer when a woman came in carrying an empty blue laundry bag and looked straight at me like she had been expecting me. She was maybe in her late 30s. Not dirty, not drunk. She had on black leggings, a gray sweatshirt, and her hair in a low bun. Pretty normal, which was part of why I didn't react much at first. She stood by the change machine for a moment, then turned around and said, "Do you have quarters?" I told her the change machine took cards. She looked at it like she didn't understand. "It keeps rejecting mine." I had 8 quarters left in my pocket. "Jag gav här för." I didn't really want to, but I was raised to be polite, and she looked stressed. I was also used to people asking for help there. The laundromat was next to a liquor store and a bus stop, so you saw all kinds of people. She said, "Thank you, Maya." I stopped with my hands still out. My name tag from the bakery was still clipped to my hoodie. I had forgotten about it. It said MAY in big letters. I laughed a little and touched it. "Long day," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I can tell." I went back to my dryer. There were 3 other customers inside when she came in. A man folding kids' clothes near the front windows, an older lady reading a magazine by the vending machine, and a teenager sitting on top of a washer with headphones on. The lights were bright. The TV in the corner was playing some late-night game show. It should have felt safe. The woman put the quarters into a washer, but didn't put clothes in it. She just shut the lid and pressed start. The washer filled with water, while her empty blue bag sat flat on the floor. I noticed, but I thought maybe she was rinsing the machine or something. People did weird things in laundromats. I had seen someone wash shoes with loose bleach. I had seen someone dry a single baseball cap for 40 minutes. A few minutes later, she walked over and stood near my dryer. "Do you know if the attendant is here?" she asked. I pointed toward the back. "Usually in the office." She didn't look. "You come here a lot?" I shrugged. "Sometimes. Same nights." That question made me glance at her. She said it casually, like she was just making conversation, but she watched my face too closely. "No," I said. "Depends." She nodded and looked at my dryer. "Work clothes?" I didn't answer that. The man folding kids' clothes left around 10:30. The older woman left 10 minutes after that. The teenager with headphones kept sitting on the washer, scrolling his phone. The woman with the blue bag did not take any clothes out because she had not put any clothes in. When her washer finished, she opened the lid, looked inside at the empty wet drum, and closed it again. Then she went outside. Through the front windows, I saw her stand by the payphone that didn't work anymore. There was a white van parked near the curb, not directly in front of the laundromat, but near the closed nail salon next door. She leaned toward the passenger window like she was talking to someone inside. I didn't like that. I went to the back and looked for the attendant. The office door was shut. There was a handwritten sign taped to it that said back IN5. I had seen that sign before. Sometimes the attendant smoked behind the building or walked to the taco truck. It annoyed me, but it wasn't strange. I went back to my dryer and checked the timer. 12 minutes left. The woman came back in without the blue bag. That bothered me more than anything so far. The bag had been on the floor by the washer. Now it was gone. She walked past me and went into the bathroom hallway. The bathrooms were in a short hallway by the back exit. I heard one door open, then close. A second later, I heard the back exit door click. She had not used the bathroom. She had gone out the back. I looked at the teenager on the washer. He hadn't noticed anything. He was nodding his head to whatever was in his headphones. I took my phone out and texted my roommate, Danny. Still at laundromat. Weird lady here. Danny wrote back, leave. I typed, dryer has 10 minutes. Even now, that answer makes me mad at myself. But at the time, leaving wet bakery uniforms in a laundromat felt like a problem. I had work at 5 the next morning. I didn't have extra money to replace them if they got stolen. I didn't want to make a scene. I wanted the night to finish normally. The back exit opened. This time a man came in. He was tall, wearing a tan work jacket and a baseball cap. He didn't carry laundry either. He walked in like he belonged there, but instead of looking at machines, he looked at people. First the teenager, then me, then the cameras in the corners. The cameras were easy to spot, black domes mounted near the ceiling. One above the front counter, one facing the machines, one by the back hallway. The man walked to the vending machine and bought a bottle of water. He didn't drink it. He put it in his pocket. The woman came in behind him a few seconds later from the same back hallway. They did not look at each other. That was the part that made it worse. If they had acted like they knew each other, I might have been less scared. But they moved separately, like two people pretending not to be together. My dryer beeped. I grabbed my clothes too fast and burned my fingers on a metal zipper. I started stuffing everything into my basket without folding. The woman appeared beside me. You're leaving already? I said, yeah. She looked toward the front door. Your tire looks low. I didn't own a car. I had walked there with my basket in a rolling cart. I said, I'm good. She blinked once, then smiled. Oh, I thought you had the Honda. The Honda outside was parked near the white van. The man in the tan jacket was now standing between me and the front door, looking at chips in the vending machine like he cared about them. The teenager with headphones slid off the washer and carried his basket to a dryer near the front. For a second, I thought about asking him to walk out with me, but he looked maybe 16, and I felt stupid. I was older. I was supposed to handle myself. The attendant still wasn't back. I put my basket on top of the rolling cart and started toward the front. The woman stepped in front of me, not blocking me completely, but enough that I had to stop. Can I borrow your phone real quick? She asked. I held it tighter. It's almost dead. It'll take 10 seconds. Sorry. Her face changed a little. Not angry. Just empty. The man by the vending machine turned his head. I moved around her and pushed my cart toward the front door. The wheels rattled loud over the tile. I kept my eyes on the glass doors. Outside, the white van's side door was open. Not all the way. Maybe a foot. There was no reason for it to be open. The sidewalk outside the laundromat was empty. The liquor store had closed at 10. The nail salon was dark. Across the street was a gas station, still open, but it was wide Fulton Street between us and them, and the traffic was light. I stopped before the door. The woman behind me said softly, "You forgot something." I turned my head, but did not turn around fully. She was holding my bakery name tag. I looked down at my hoodie. It was gone. I still don't know exactly when she took it. Maybe when she stood beside my dryer. Maybe when she brushed past me earlier. But there it was in her hand, pin and all. The man in the tan jacket walked away from the vending machine and stood near the front windows. He wasn't pretending anymore. The teenager with the headphones noticed then. He pulled one earbud out and looked at me, then at them. I said loudly, "Can you get the attendant?" My voice cracked. The teenager said, "What?" I repeated louder, "Can you get the attendant?" The woman said, "She's not here." That was the first time she admitted knowing that. The man moved toward the door. I turned my cart hard and went back into the rows of machines. I didn't run at first because running felt like starting something I could not stop. I pushed the cart between two rows of dryers, knocking the basket against the machines. The woman said, "Maya, wait." I hated hearing my name from her. The teenager dropped his basket and ran to the back office. He banged on the door. "Hey, "Hey, open up." No answer. The man came around the end of the dryers. I grabbed the first thing my hand found, a plastic bottle of detergent someone had left on top of a washer, and threw it at him. It hit the floor near his feet and burst open. Blue liquid spread across the tile. He slipped. Not a movie fall, not dramatic. Just enough that he caught himself on a machine and cursed. That gave me a few seconds. The teenager shouted, "Go through the back." But the back hallway was where they had come from. I wasn't going there. Instead, I climbed onto the long folding table in the center of the laundromat, stepped across it, and jumped down on the other side. My ankle twisted when I landed, but I stayed up. The woman came around the table from the other side, still holding my name tag. I grabbed my basket and threw the clothes at her. Shirts and towels hit her face and chest. It wasn't strong, but it startled her. The teenager had found a yellow mop bucket and was shoving it against the office door like he thought he could break it down. Then finally, the office door opened. The attendant, a heavy-set man named Luis, stepped out with a phone in his hand and a confused look on his face. The teenager yelled, "Call the cops. They're trying to grab her." Luis looked from him to me to the man in the tan jacket. He understood fast. He was not a big hero type. He just grabbed the metal pole used to open high windows and shouted, "Get out!" The man in the tan jacket backed toward the front door. The woman didn't move at first. She stood there with my name tag in her hand, like she was deciding whether to keep pretending. Luis shouted again, louder, "Out! Now!" The teenager ran to the front window and pointed his phone at the white van. That was what made them leave. Not Luis, not me, not the police. The phone. The woman dropped my name tag on the floor and walked out. The man followed her. The van's side door shut before they reached it. It pulled away without headlights for half a block, then turned them on and took the corner fast. Luis locked the front doors and called 911. The police did not catch them that night. They came, took our statements, and talked to the gas station across the street. The gas station cameras caught part of the van, but the plate was muddy or covered. The laundromat cameras showed more. I watched some of it 2 days later with the owner, because I needed my clothes back, and he wanted me to identify the woman. The footage showed her coming in 20 minutes before she approached me. She stood outside first, watching through the window. She looked at me, then at my basket, then at the street. The man in the tan jacket was already in the white van at that point. The blue laundry bag had not been empty after all. On the footage, when she went out the first time, she handed it through the van window. The police later told me it might have been used to make her look like a regular customer, but Luis thought there was something heavy in it when she carried it in. None of us ever found out what. The back exit lock had been propped open with a folded piece of cardboard. Luis said he had not done it. He had been in the office on a video call with his wife while eating dinner, with the little TV turned up. He hadn't heard anything until the teenager started banging. The teenager's name was Anthony. His mom called me the next day because Luis gave her my number after asking me first. She said Anthony couldn't sleep and kept saying he should have noticed sooner. I told her he noticed when it mattered. The police said there had been 2 reports in the area of women being followed from late-night businesses. One involved a grocery store. One involved a check cashing place. No one had been taken, as far as they knew, but one woman had her purse stolen after being lured outside by someone saying her car had been hit. I stopped going to that laundromat at night. I also stopped wearing my name tag after work. That was such a small thing, but it changed how I moved through the world. I used to think a name tag made me look like a normal person coming from a normal job. Now I think of it as something a stranger can pick up and use. For weeks after that, I washed my uniforms in my bathtub and dried them over chairs in my apartment. It made the whole place smell like damp bread and detergent, but I didn't care. The part one remember most clearly is not the van or the man or even the woman saying my name. It is how bright that laundromat was. All those lights, all those machines, a teenager 10 feet away, a gas station across the street. Help was close enough to see, but not close enough to stop someone from trying. That night taught me something I wish I had learned in an easier way. A public place is only safe if the people in it are paying attention. And sometimes you have to make them pay attention before someone quiet and calm walks you out the door. Story 3. I found the plastic flamingo before I found the rental house, which should tell you what kind of weekend it was already turning into. I was 31, working as a substitute teacher in western Pennsylvania, and I had driven 4 hours to a little lake town in Ohio because my cousin was getting married nearby. Hotels were expensive that weekend, so I rented the cheapest guest house I could find behind someone's main property. I was recently heartbroken, trying to prove I could do things alone, and too embarrassed to tell my family I couldn't afford the hotel block. The host's message said, "Key is under the pink flamingo by the porch." When I pulled up at dusk, there were 3 pink flamingos in the yard. The house was more like a converted garage than a house. White siding, small porch, gravel driveway, a line of trees behind it. The main house sat about 100 feet away, but all the windows on that side were dark. The listing said the host lived there but traveled often. I parked beside a stack of firewood and got out with my overnight bag and dress clothes. My phone had 1 bar. The lake town looked cute in the pictures, but the road to the rental was narrow and wooded, with no sidewalks and very few lights. I checked the first flamingo. No key. Second flamingo. No key. Under the third, I found a key in a small plastic bag. There was also a folded note. "Back door sticks. Push hard." That was not in the app message. I stood there holding the note, looking at the house. I was tired from driving and annoyed from missing the rehearsal dinner because of traffic. The smart thing would have been to message the host and ask about it. Instead, I told myself hosts forgot to update instructions all the time. A sticky door was not scary. It was just an old rental. The front door opened with the key. Inside, the place was plain but clean. Small living room, kitchenette, bathroom, bedroom with a quilt, and a sliding glass door in the back that opened toward the trees. There was a guest binder on the coffee table with Wi-Fi info and restaurant suggestions. I checked the back door. It did stick, but it locked. The note was right about that. I messaged the host through the app. Checked in. Just confirming I'm in the right guest house. Found the key under the third flamingo. A reply came almost immediately. "Perfect. Enjoy your stay." No mention of the note. No mention of the 3 flamingos. I should say now that the host had good reviews. Not hundreds, but enough. People said the place was quiet, clean, convenient. A few reviews mentioned the host by name, Marlene, and said she was friendly but gave guests privacy. That calmed me down. I changed clothes, brushed my teeth, and called my mom to tell her I made it. I didn't mention the weird key thing because she worries too much. After that, I microwaved gas station soup and sat on the couch scrolling through old pictures of my ex, which was a terrible idea, but also the kind of thing you do when you are alone in a strange place and trying not to feel lonely. Around 10:30, someone knocked on the window. Not the door, the window beside the kitchenette. 2 light taps. I froze with my spoon halfway to my mouth. There was a curtain over that window, but it didn't reach the bottom all the way. Through the gap, I saw jeans and boots standing on the gravel outside. Then a man's voice said, "You getting okay?" I did not move. He knocked again, light and polite. Marlene asked me to check the door. I looked at my phone. No message from Marlene. I walked quietly to the front door and looked through the peephole. Nobody was there. The man was still at the side window. "Hello," he said. I did not answer. I typed a message to the host. "Someone is outside saying you asked him to check the door. Is that true?" The reply took longer this time. Maybe 2 minutes. During those 2 minutes, the man walked from the side window to the porch. I heard his boots on the wood. He knocked on the door. "Miss?" Marlene sent me. I held my phone with both hands and watched the typing bubble appear, disappear, then appear again. Finally, the host replied, "No, do not open. I am not there." I stared at the message. The man knocked again. Still gentle. "I know the back door sticks," he said. "She said you might need help with it." That was the note. He knew about the note. I backed away from the door. The host sent another message. "Call sheriff. I am calling too." I did not call right away because my phone had 1 bar and I was scared the call would drop. I also did not want to speak with the man standing 6 feet away from me and hear my own voice in the room. Instead, I turned off the living room lamp and moved into the bedroom. The bedroom window faced the trees. There were no curtains, only cheap blinds. I stayed low and called 911 from the floor beside the bed. The call connected, but the dispatcher kept asking me to repeat the address. I had to open the app to read it, and my hands were clumsy. While I was doing that, I heard the man leave the porch. For a few seconds, I thought he was gone. Then the back door moved. Not opened, just shifted in its frame. He was at the sliding door now. The back door did stick, and the lock was old, one of those little latch locks that never feels like enough. I had locked it earlier, but I could hear him testing it. Push. Pause. Push. The dispatcher asked if I could get to my car. My car was outside by the front porch. To reach it, I would have to pass the front door and step into the driveway with him somewhere around the house. I said no. The dispatcher told me deputies were being sent, but the address was out near the county line, so it would take time. The man stopped pushing the back door. Then my phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Wrong house. Sorry. I almost believed it for half a second. That is the embarrassing truth. I wanted it to be a misunderstanding so badly that my mind grabbed onto the first normal explanation. Maybe some local caretaker had the wrong rental. Maybe Marlene had a neighbor who did errands and forgot to tell her. Maybe he was leaving. Then a second message came. Open so I can explain. I had never given my number to the host except through the rental app, where it was hidden. The only way he could have my real number was if someone had gotten it from somewhere else, or if he had seen it. I whispered to the dispatcher. He texted me. She told me not to respond. That was when I saw the guest binder on the bedroom floor. I had brought it in with me without thinking, because it had the address on the front page. Now it had fallen open under the bed. In the plastic sleeve at the back, there was a paper labeled emergency contact. Guests were supposed to write their name and phone number in case of problems. I had filled it out when I arrived, because the binder asked for it, and I thought it was normal. The plastic sleeve was empty now. The paper was gone. I crawled to the bedroom door and looked into the living room. The front door was shut. The back slider was shut. Nothing moved. Then I noticed the bathroom window. It was open about 2 inches. I had not opened it. It was a small window over the toilet, too small for most adults to climb through, but big enough for a hand. Big enough to reach the latch if someone had the right angle. It faced the narrow space between the guest house and the main property. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and my purse. I left my suitcase, dress, everything else. I told the dispatcher, I'm leaving. She said to stay inside if I was secure. But I no longer felt secure. The bathroom window had changed the whole place for me. The house felt less like shelter and more like a box someone else understood better than I did. I had seen an old dock behind the trees when I arrived, and beyond that, I knew there was the lake road. I decided not to go to my car. He expected that. I decided to go out the back and run through the trees to the road. It sounds stupid now, going out the door he had been testing. But the front felt worse, and I thought if I waited, he might find another way in. I put the phone in my hoodie pocket with the dispatcher still connected. I unlocked the sliding door as quietly as I could. It stuck exactly like the note said. I pushed with my shoulder. It made a horrible dragging sound. I stepped outside. The yard behind the guest house was darker than I expected. The porch light did not reach the trees. I moved fast, not running at first because I couldn't see the ground. Leaves and sticks cracked under my shoes. Behind me, a man said, "Don't go that way." He was near the side of the house, not the back door. Closer than I thought. I ran. I hit a low branch with my shoulder and almost fell. My phone bounced in my pocket. I could hear the dispatcher saying something, but I couldn't make out the words. The trees were not deep, maybe 50 yards, but it felt like a mile because I didn't know the land. I could smell lake water and mud. Then I saw a light ahead. Not headlights. A porch light or dock light. I came out near a small marina with a bait shop attached. It was closed, but there was a man sitting in a pickup truck by the gas pumps, smoking with the window down. He looked at me like I was drunk or lost. I ran straight to his truck and said, "Please don't leave. Someone is following me." He sat up fast. "Who?" "I don't know." The man got out, locked his truck with the keys still in his hand, and told me to stand by the light. He was older, maybe 60, wearing a faded marina shirt. His name was Walt. I know that because it was stitched on his chest. He looked past me toward the trees. A figure stopped at the tree line. Not close enough to see his face clearly. Just a man standing where the darkness ended. Walt shouted, "You need something?" The man did not answer. Walt shouted again. "I said you need something?" The man turned and walked back into the trees. Walt did not chase him. He told me to get inside the bait shop. He unlocked it, brought me behind the counter, and called the sheriff himself. I stayed on the floor behind a display of fishing line until the deputies got there. The man was gone by then. They searched the rental, the main house, and the trees. They did not find him. They did find things that made it worse. The bathroom window screen had been removed from the outside and leaned neatly against the wall. The emergency contact sheet from the binder was found in the gravel near the side window. My phone number was circled. There were 2 cigarette butts under the kitchenette window, even though the listing said no smoking, and the host later told the deputies she had been out of town for 3 days. The note about the back door was not from the host. Marlene said she had never written it. She also said there should have been only 1 flamingo in the yard. The other 2 were new. That detail still bothers me the most. Someone had added them, so I would search around outside longer after arriving. Maybe to see which door I used. Maybe just to make me confused. I don't know. Marlene drove back that night and met me at the sheriff's office around 1 in the morning. She was crying and kept apologizing. I believe she was scared too. She said a handyman had worked on the property 2 months earlier, but she did not know if it was him, and the deputies never told me they proved anything. The rental app refunded me. They sent a safety email a week later, saying the listing had been suspended while they reviewed the incident. That sounded official, but it didn't make me feel better. The sheriff's deputy, who called me later, said they had no suspect. No clear prints. No good camera footage because the property didn't have cameras. Walt from the marina gave a statement, but he could only describe a man in dark clothes, average height, moving away into the trees. I slept at my aunt's house the rest of the weekend, and went to the wedding with no makeup and swollen eyes. I told people I had food poisoning because I did not want to explain why I kept checking the doors at the reception hall. After that trip, I stopped booking the cheapest place. I also stopped filling out guest binders with my real phone number unless I knew exactly who could access them. I send addresses to my family now. I check windows before I unpack. I don't care if it makes me look nervous. For a while, I felt ashamed that I had gone there alone, like I had invited the situation by trying to save money. But that is not true. Being alone is not permission. Being polite is not permission. Being a guest in someone else's space does not mean every stranger gets the benefit of the doubt. The key was under a plastic flamingo, just like the message said. That was the part that made me trust the place. Now I know a correct detail from the wrong person can be more dangerous than an obvious lie. Story 4. I was staying in my aunt's house in Glendale Heights, Illinois, because my life had gotten small and messy, and I needed somewhere cheap to sleep. I was 26, working customer service for a health insurance company from my laptop, and my boyfriend had just left our apartment with half the furniture and most of my confidence. My aunt was in rehab after knee surgery, and she told me I could stay at her place for 2 months as long as I watered the plants and brought in the mail. It was a brick ranch house on a quiet street with a lot of retired people, the kind of neighborhood where nobody parked wrong without someone noticing. I thought it would be the safest place in the world to fall apart for a while. The first strange thing happened on a Tuesday evening while I was rinsing a coffee mug at the kitchen sink. I heard plastic wheels scraping on concrete. At first I thought it was my aunt's recycling bin rolling in the wind. Trash pickup had been that morning, and a lot of bins were still sitting at the curb. But the sound got closer. Slow scrape, stop. Slow scrape, stop. I looked out the kitchen window and saw a man in a gray hoodie dragging the blue recycling bin up my aunt's driveway. He was not moving fast. He was not acting sneaky. That was part of what made me just stand there and watch him for a second. He put the bin right under the kitchen window. Then he looked up. I stepped back without thinking. He had not looked surprised to see me. He just gave this small wave, like we both knew why he was there. I opened the back door only as far as the chain would allow. "Can I help you?" He turned around like he had been waiting for that. "Sorry," he said. "Wrong house." That was all. He dragged the bin back down the driveway and left it near the curb. He walked away toward the end of the block. I watched until he turned the corner. I wanted to call someone, but I felt stupid. It was still light outside. He had not tried to open anything. Maybe he was helping a neighbor with their bins and got mixed up. The houses on that street did look similar. So I texted my aunt, "Do you know a guy in a gray hoodie who helps with trash bins?" She wrote back 10 minutes later, "No. Why?" I stared at that message for a while and then wrote, "Never mind. Probably neighbor." I did not tell her the rest. I did not want to stress her out while she was in physical therapy. Also, if I'm being honest, I did not want her to think I was too anxious to stay in a normal house. That night, I worked until almost midnight. My job had late chat support, and I was trying to take extra hours because I owed money on the apartment I had left. I had the lights on in the kitchen and living room. The house felt too quiet, but old houses make noise. The furnace clicked. The fridge hummed. The pipes knocked. Around 11:40, I heard one soft tap on the kitchen window. Not a knock. Not a branch. Just one tap. I muted my headset and sat still. A second tap came after about 10 seconds. I walked into the hallway, turned off the kitchen light, and stood where I could see the window without being seen. The curtains were thin. My aunt had those white lace ones that look pretty in daylight and useless at night. There was nothing outside except the driveway and the recycling bin at the curb. I stood there long enough for my laptop to start chiming because a customer was waiting. I went back to work, but I put a chair under the back door handle before I sat down. It was not even a good chair. It was one of those padded dining chairs that would slide if someone pushed hard enough, but it made me feel like I had done something. The next morning, I almost laughed at myself. I made toast, opened the blinds, and checked the yard. No footprints. No face at the glass. No horror movie scene. Just frost on the grass and a squirrel digging near the fence. I had been alone too much. That was what I decided. At lunch, someone rang the doorbell. I looked through the peephole. It was a woman, maybe in her 40s, with a red scarf and a paper grocery bag in her arms. She looked normal. Tired even. I did not open the door right away. She rang again, then leaned close to the door. "Teresa?" she called. That was my aunt's name. I opened the door but kept the storm door locked. "She's not here." The woman smiled like she was relieved to see me. "Oh, you must be the niece." I did not answer. She shifted the paper bag to her other arm. "I'm sorry. I thought she'd be back by now. I brought the church bread." My aunt did go to church sometimes. I had seen bulletins on her dining table. The woman held up the bag, and there were 2 loaves inside wrapped in clear plastic. I asked which church. She blinked. "St. Mark's," she said. That was the right answer. So I unlocked the storm door and took the bag. I did not open the main door all the way. I just reached out. She looked past me into the house. "Are you staying here now?" "Just helping her out." "Good," she said. She shouldn't be alone after surgery. Her eyes moved to the floor near the entry table, where my shoes were sitting. Then to the suitcase by the hallway. Then back to my face. She said, "You working from home?" I tried to laugh it off. "Sometimes." She nodded. "Nice. Safer than driving." I wanted the conversation to end. She had not done anything wrong, but something about her felt too comfortable. I said, "I'll tell her you came by." She put her hand on the storm door before I could close it. "Did she tell you about the spare?" I froze for half a second. "The spare?" I asked. "In case you lock yourself out. She used to keep it under that little frog on the porch." I looked down. There was a ceramic frog planter near the mat. The woman smiled again. "Maybe she moved it." I said, "I have to get back to work," and closed the door. I did not lock it quietly. I locked it hard. Then I picked up the frog. There was no key under it. I looked around the porch. The woman was already walking down the driveway. She did not get into a car. She turned left and kept walking. I called my aunt. This time I told her everything. She was quiet at first. Then she asked me to describe the woman. I did. My aunt said, "I don't know her." "What about St. Mark's?" "I haven't gone there in 5 years." The bread bag went straight into the outside trash. My aunt told me to check all the doors and windows. She tried to sound calm, but I could hear her breathing get sharp. She said she had kept a spare key under the frog years ago, before she got a keypad lock on the back door. She said she had probably told people at church about it back then, because she used to ask neighbors to feed her cat. I asked if anyone knew I was staying there. She said, "I posted a thank you to you on Facebook last week." I closed my eyes. The post had been a picture of me and my aunt in her hospital room. The caption said, Thankful my niece Marissa is staying at the house while I recover. I wanted to be mad, but she had meant it sweetly. She was proud I was helping. The rest of the day, I worked with the blinds closed. At 5:12 p.m., I heard the recycling bin again. Same scrape. Same pause. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop and a half-eaten bowl of soup. I did not move right away. I just listened. The sound was in the driveway. Then it stopped directly outside the kitchen window. I actually crawled, from the kitchen into the hallway. I felt ridiculous doing it, but I did not want whoever was out there to see my head past the window. My phone was on the table. That was the worst part. I had left it next to the soup. I could see it from the hallway, face up, bright from a work notification. I could also see the shadow of the recycling bin against the curtain. It was right under the window again. Then the house phone rang. My aunt still had a landline. It was mounted on the wall in the kitchen, maybe 3 feet from the window. The ring was so loud I almost made a sound. It rang 4 times and stopped. Then my laptop started making the incoming chat sound. I stayed on the floor in the hallway trying to think. A minute later, someone knocked on the back door. Not the front door. The back door by the little laundry room. 3 calm knocks. I had checked that door earlier. It was locked. The chair was not there anymore because I had felt dumb and moved it back to the table. A man's voice said, "Marissa?" I covered my mouth with both hands. He said my name again, not loud. "Marissa, it's okay." He did not say who he was. I backed down the hall toward my aunt's bedroom. There was an old cordless phone on her nightstand, but it was dead when I picked it up. No dial tone, no light. Maybe the battery was bad. Maybe it had not been charged in years. The knock came again. Teresa said I could check the meter. That made no sense. He was using my aunt's name like a tool. I went into the bedroom and locked the door. Then I climbed halfway into the closet and reached up to the shelf where my aunt kept old blankets. I knew there was an emergency whistle somewhere because she had made a joke about it. I could not find it. My hands kept grabbing towels and shoeboxes. Then I heard the back door handle move. Not a push. A slow test. I forgot about being quiet. I started looking through every drawer in the room for anything useful. Scissors. A flashlight. The phone charger for my cell, which did not matter because my cell was in the kitchen. From the hallway came a sound like metal clicking. The back door had a keypad, but it also had a regular lock. I heard another click. Then the door shifted in its frame. He was not inside, but he was close. I opened the bedroom window as quietly as I could. It faced the front yard. There was no screen because my aunt had taken it out for cleaning and never put it back. The drop was not high, but there were thorn bushes underneath. I got one leg out, then stopped. The man outside the back door went quiet. I could hear my own breathing. I could hear a car pass somewhere far away. Then the kitchen window slid up. It made a soft rubbery sound, like it had stuck at first. The recycling bin had not been random. It was a step. I went out the bedroom window without caring about the bushes. My sweater caught on something and tore. My shin hit the brick edge. I landed on my hands and knees in the mulch. I did not run across the street because I had no idea who was watching. I ran straight down the driveway toward the sidewalk, away from the back of the house. The front door of the house 2 doors down opened, and an older man stepped out with a bag of salt for his steps. He looked annoyed until he saw my face. I said, "Call 911. Someone's in my aunt's yard." He did not ask questions. He yelled for his wife, pulled me inside, and locked the door. I know the instruction people always give is to call the police yourself, but I did not have my phone. His wife called. I stood in their living room shaking so hard my teeth clicked. The man, Mr. Alvarez, kept looking out through the side of the curtain. He said he saw someone come out from between my aunt's garage and the fence. Not running, just walking fast. Gray hoodie, head down. He went behind the houses toward the next street. The police did not catch him that night. They came, checked my aunt's house, and found the kitchen window open. The old latch was weak and had been pushed with something thin. Nothing was missing because he had not had much time. My laptop and phone were still on the kitchen table. One officer asked if I knew anyone who would want to scare me. I said no. He asked about my ex. I said my ex was lazy and cruel in normal ways, but he was not this. They took the bread bag from the outside trash. They took a photo of the recycling bin. They asked my aunt for names from the old church. but it led nowhere that week. The part that stayed with me came 2 days later. Mr. Alvarez came over while my cousin was helping me pack my stuff. He had remembered something. He said a woman in a red scarf had been on the block the previous Sunday too. She was not carrying bread then. She had been standing near my aunt's porch pretending to talk on the phone. He had not thought much of it because people visit people. Then the police found a folded flyer in the bushes under the kitchen window. It was from a house cleaning service, the kind left on doors. On the back, in pencil, someone had written times. Lights off 12:15. Kitchen 8:20. Girl alone? Back door keypad. I had not noticed anyone watching me. I had been inside that house answering customer chats and reheating soup and thinking I was invisible because I felt invisible. My aunt deleted the Facebook post. I stopped staying there the same day. For a while, I blamed myself for opening the door for the woman. Then I blamed my aunt for posting about me. Then I blamed the neighborhood for seeming safe enough to relax in. Now I think the worst part is how normal they both acted. The man with the bin, the woman with the bread. Neither one looked desperate or wild. They looked like people who knew most of us will be polite before we are careful. I do not answer doors now unless I am expecting someone. I do not care if they have food, a package, flowers, a lost pet, or a story that almost makes sense. A locked door is not rude. It is just a door doing its job. Story 5. The laundromat I used was open 24 hours, which sounded convenient until the night I realized convenience just means there are fewer people around to notice things. I was 19 then, living in Columbus, Ohio, going to community college part-time, and closing at a sandwich shop 5 nights a week. I shared a basement apartment with a girl from my math class, but she had gone home for her brother's graduation that weekend. Our building had one washer in the basement, and it ate quarters without washing anything, so I used this laundromat between a tobacco shop and a closed nail salon. I went late because it was cheaper after midnight, and because I did not want anyone seeing me haul garbage bags of clothes through the parking lot. That sounds dumb now. At the time, I was embarrassed about being broke in every possible way. I had work shirts, thrift store jeans, towels that never dried right, and one decent hoodie I wore almost every day. The first weird thing happened before I even got my clothes into the washer. A man was standing at the change machine with a $10 bill in his hand, but he was not putting it in. He was just holding it flat against the slot. I came in with 2 black trash bags and my detergent balanced on top. The bell over the door made a little metal sound, and he looked at me in the reflection of the vending machine. He smiled, but not fully. "You know if this works?" he asked. I said, "Sometimes you have to smooth the bill out." He looked at the bill like that had never occurred to him. "You come here a lot?" I shrugged and kept walking. "Sometimes." He put the 10 in after I passed. It took it on the first try. That should have been the end of it. There were 3 other people there. An older woman folding baby clothes. A guy in construction pants asleep in a plastic chair with his arms crossed. And a woman around my age using the big dryers by the wall. It was not crowded, but it was not empty. I picked a washer near the front windows because I liked being able to see my car. I had an old Corolla with a passenger door that only opened from the inside. I always parked under the one light that worked. The man from the change machine started using a washer 2 rows behind me. He had no basket. He had one small grocery bag of clothes. A t-shirt, socks, maybe a towel. Not enough for a full wash. But he fed quarters into the machine anyway, then sat down facing my row. I told myself not to be dramatic. Some people wash small loads. Some people are lonely and talk too much. I had met plenty of strange customers at my job who were harmless, just awkward. I put in my clothes and started the washer. 10 minutes later, he walked over to the vending machine and bought a pack of peanut butter crackers. Then he sat back down and did not eat them. He kept them in his hand. The older woman left around 12:35. She gave me a quick look on her way out, like she wanted to say something, but she just pushed her laundry cart through the door and went to her car. The sleeping construction guy woke up, checked his phone, and left too. Now it was me, the young woman by the dryers, and the man. The woman by the dryers had headphones in. She was folding fast, like she wanted to be done. I remember noticing she had a bright purple laundry basket. The man got up and walked to the bathroom hallway at the back. He did not go inside the bathroom. He stood near the corner where the hallway turned, looking at the bulletin board. Then he looked at me. I looked down at my phone. A few seconds later, a text came in from my roommate. "You alive, LOL?" I wrote back, barely, doing laundry like a loser. She sent a laughing emoji. I wanted to ask her to stay awake until I got home, but I did not. I did not want to sound needy. That was my weakness then. I would rather be scared alone than admit I was scared. My washer finished at 12:48. I opened it and started moving clothes into a dryer. When I lifted my gray hoodie, something fell out of the sleeve. A folded receipt. It was not mine. It was dry, not washed. It had been placed inside after the wash ended, or maybe just as I opened the washer. I unfolded it. On the back, someone had written Kayla in block letters. That is my name. Under it was Silver Car. I looked at my car through the front window. The man was sitting again with the crackers in his hand. I could feel my face getting hot. I was not even scared at first. I was angry in this shaky way, like when someone crosses a line, and you still are not sure if you are allowed to react. I walked over to the woman with the purple basket. "Hey," I said quietly. She pulled one headphone out. I showed her the receipt. Her expression changed right away. "Is that you?" she asked. "Yeah." She looked over my shoulder, then back at me. "Do you know him?" "No," she said. "He asked me what time you got here." That sentence made the whole laundromat feel different. I asked, "What did you say?" I said I didn't know. She started putting unfolded clothes into her basket. The man stood up. He did not come toward us at first. He walked to his washer, opened it, and looked inside like he had forgotten what he was doing. The machine was still full of water. He had stopped it mid-cycle somehow. Then he looked at both of us and said, "Everything okay?" The woman answered before I could. "Yeah." He nodded. "You sure?" She said, "Yep." He walked to the front window and looked out at my car. Then he looked back. I whispered, "I'm leaving." The woman said, "Don't go to your car." I hated that she was right. The laundromat had a back exit, but it opened into a narrow alley behind the strip mall. I had never used it. There was also a service door marked employees only near the bathroom hallway. Nobody worked there at night, or at least I had never seen anyone. There was just a number taped to the wall for emergencies. The woman said her boyfriend was waiting at the Taco Bell across the street. She said we could walk together. That sounded better than staying, but the front door was between us and the man. He was still standing near the windows with the crackers. Then my dryer door opened. Not by itself. He had walked over while we were talking. He opened my dryer and reached in. "Hey," I said. He pulled out one of my work shirts. I walked toward him without thinking. He smiled and held the shirt out. "Dropped it." It was in the dryer. He looked confused in a fake way. "Oh, my bad," the woman with the purple basket said loud. "Don't touch her clothes." He stared at her for a second, and his face went blank. Then he said, "I wasn't." He dropped the shirt on the floor. I do not know what would have happened next, because the front door opened and a man in a reflective vest came in carrying a mop bucket. He was maybe 50, with a ring of keys clipped to his belt. He stopped when he saw us all standing there. "You folks good?" he asked. The woman with the purple basket said, "No." The man with the crackers laughed once. "She's confused." The worker looked at him. "I wasn't asking you." That worker's name was Darnell. I learned it later. He cleaned the laundromat and the two businesses next to it at night. He was not always there at the same time, which is why I had never noticed him before. The woman told him about the receipt. I showed it to him. Darnell read it, then looked at my car, then at the man. "You need to leave," he said. The man raised both hands. "I'm doing laundry." "Not anymore. My clothes are wet." "Then pick them up wet." For a few seconds nobody moved. Then the man walked to his washer and pulled out the small grocery bag. He did not take the clothes from the machine. He just grabbed the bag, still holding the crackers, and walked toward the front door. He stopped near me. "You don't have to be rude," he said. Darnell stepped closer. The man left. I expected him to cross the parking lot and disappear. Instead, he stood outside under the light near my car. He did not touch it. He just stood there, looking in through the laundromat window. Darnell locked the front door. The man tried the handle once. Not hard. Just enough for the metal to click. Darnell said, "Back up." The man stayed there for maybe 10 seconds, then walked toward the closed nail salon. He went around the side of the building. Darnell told us to get away from the windows. The woman with the purple basket called her boyfriend. I called my roommate finally. She answered half asleep, and when she heard my voice, she woke up fast. I did not call the police right away. Darnell did. He said, "There's a guy circling the building and harassing customers." He sounded calm, like he had made that call before. We waited near the folding tables in the middle of the laundromat. Then came a soft knock from the back exit. The alley door. It was not loud. Just 2 knuckles against metal. The woman started crying quietly. Not big crying. Just tears running down her face while she held her basket handle. Darnell grabbed the mop handle and walked toward the back, but he did not open the door. He looked through a little scratched plastic window. "What do you want?" he shouted. No answer. He came back and said, "Both of you stand behind the counter." There was no real counter, just a little lost and found shelf near the office door, but we moved behind it anyway. The knocking came again. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at it. It buzzed again. I did not answer. A text popped up. "You forgot something." Then another. "Come get your hoodie." My hoodie was still in the dryer. I looked at the dryer. The door was open again. I had not heard it open. I did not know if it had not latched when the man touched my clothes, or if I was too panicked to notice, but the hoodie was no longer there. Darnell took my phone and read the messages. His face changed. He said, "We're not waiting in here." He unlocked a different door behind the office shelf. I had never noticed it because it looked like a storage closet. It connected to the back of the tobacco shop. The tobacco shop was closed, but Darnell had keys for cleaning. He moved us through the dark shop, past glass cases and boxes of lighters, and out the front door facing the main road. There were cars going by there. Lights. A bus stop. The Taco Bell across the street. The woman's boyfriend was already running over. We crossed as a group while Darnell stayed at the tobacco shop door and watched the side of the building. The police arrived about 8 minutes later. The man was gone. They found my hoodie in the alley behind the laundromat, folded on top of a dumpster lid. The sleeve had been turned inside out. My car key was not in it because I kept my keys in my front pocket, but my student ID had been in the front pouch. That was how he got my last name. The police report did not make it sound as scary as it felt. It said suspicious person, harassment, possible stalking. They took the receipt and the texts. The phone number was from an online texting app, not a regular phone. The laundromat owner came in the next morning and checked the cameras with Darnell and the police. I did not watch the video, but Darnell told me what it showed. The man had entered about 3 minutes after me. He had not had laundry at first. The grocery bag came from the trash can near the change machine. He pulled out clothes someone else had thrown away and used them to make it look like he had a reason to be there. At one point, while I was texting near the washer, he walked past my car outside and looked through the windows. That was probably how he knew it was silver. The camera did not show him writing the receipt, but it showed him standing close to my washer when I had my back turned. The owner also said someone had complained about a similar man 2 weeks earlier. He had asked a woman if she needed help carrying clothes. When she said no, he waited outside until her husband pulled up. No one knew his name. He never used the same card. He never stayed long enough to get caught doing one big obvious thing. That bothered me more than anything. He survived on small things. A question, a look, a receipt, a stolen hoodie. Things people can explain away until they are already scared. I stopped using that laundromat. For months, I washed clothes in my bathtub and hung them over chairs because it felt better than sitting under those bright lights at 1 in the morning. I also stopped wearing headphones in public. I stopped parking just because a spot was close. I started asking employees to walk me out, even when I felt embarrassed. The woman with the purple basket found me on Facebook later and messaged me once. She said, "I'm glad we were both there." I think about that a lot. A public place can feel safe because there are lights and cameras and machines making noise. But lights are not people. Cameras do not step between you and the door. And sometimes the only reason you get out is because one stranger decides your fear is enough proof. Story 6. I did not want to spend money on a decent hotel, and that is the whole reason I ended up in room 214. I was 31, working as a traveling ultrasound tech, and I had picked up a short contract in a small hospital outside Erie, Pennsylvania. I lived out of my car and 2 suitcases most of that year. The money was good on paper, but every contract had gaps, and I was trying to save after helping my younger brother with his car payments. So when the hospital's suggested hotel wanted almost $200 a night, I booked a cheaper place 15 minutes away, near the highway and a chain diner. It had 3 stars, free breakfast, and a lobby that looked recently painted in the pictures. I got there on a rainy Sunday night around 9:30. I was tired in that heavy way where you stop caring about details. I had driven 6 hours after finishing a shift the day before. My scrubs were in a tote bag. My hair was still damp from a gas station bathroom sink because I had spilled coffee on myself in Ohio. The first strange thing happened when the front desk clerk handed me my key card. She said, "You're in 214, second floor, right off the elevator." Then she looked at the computer again and frowned. "Actually," she said, "did you already check in?" I laughed because I thought she was joking. "No, I just got here." She clicked around. "Huh, system's being weird." She made a new key card and slid it across the counter. I should have asked more. I should have said, "What does that mean?" But I was exhausted, and I had stayed in enough cheap hotels to know the software is always broken, the ice machine is always broken, and somebody is always smoking where they should not be. So I took the key and went upstairs. Room 214 smelled like lemon cleaner and old carpet. The bed was made. The TV was off. The bathroom light was on. I set my suitcase on the luggage rack and noticed a paper coffee cup in the trash can. It had a lid and a brown sleeve. Not mine. I stared at it for a second, then told myself housekeeping had missed it. It was 1 cup. The room looked clean otherwise. I checked the bed because I always check the bed. Then I checked the bathroom. There were towels, little soaps, and 1 long black hair stuck to the inside of the sink. My hair is dark blonde. Again, not enough to leave. Not when I had already paid. Not when it was raining and I had to be at hospital orientation at 7 a.m. I threw the cup into the hallway trash can, wiped the sink with toilet paper, and took a shower. After the shower, I put on sweatpants and plugged my phone in next to the bed. I was about to sleep when the room phone rang. It was loud enough to make me jump. I picked it up. A man said, "You find everything okay?" I thought it was the front desk. "Yeah," I said. "Thanks." There was a pause. Then he said, "You alone in there?" Not in a flirty voice. Not even creepy exactly. Just flat. I sat up. "Who is this?" He hung up. I held the phone to my ear for a few seconds after the line went dead. Then I called the front desk from my cell. The same woman answered. I said, "Did you just call my room?" "No," she said. "Is there a man working there?" "No, just me until 11. I told her what happened. She sighed like she was annoyed, but not at me. "Sometimes kids prank call rooms," she said. "From inside the hotel? They can call room to room if they know the number." "How would they know mine?" She paused. "Your room number is on the door." That was not an answer, but I let it go because I wanted the situation to be normal. I told myself some bored teenager had called random rooms. I put the deadbolt on, flipped the swing latch, and shoved my suitcase in front of the door, even though it would not stop anything. At 10:18, someone slid something under my door. I heard paper scrape the carpet. I sat frozen for a second, then turned on the lamp. It was a plain white envelope. No hotel logo. No name. I did not touch it right away. I just looked at it lying there like it had been waiting. Finally, I picked it up by the corner and opened it. Inside was a second keycard sleeve, the kind they put your room key in at the desk. Written on it in blue pen was 214 already occupied. That was it. No threat. No explanation. I called the front desk again. This time the clerk sounded nervous. She said, "Stay in your room. I'm coming up." I did not like that either. "Can you send security?" I asked. "We don't have security." That was the moment the hotel stopped feeling cheap and started feeling isolated. I looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. It had that yellow hotel lighting that makes every door look the same. I could hear the elevator hum somewhere. About 2 minutes later, the clerk stepped out of the elevator. She was young, maybe 22, with a messy bun and a black cardigan. She walked fast, holding another key card in one hand and her phone in the other. I opened the door with the swing latch still on. She said, "Can I see the envelope?" I passed it through the gap. She looked at it and whispered, "What the hell?" That scared me more than if she had acted professional. She told me she had checked the system. Room 214 showed my name, but it also showed a check-in at 6:12 p.m. under a walk-in guest. No payment attached. No ID scanned. Just the room marked occupied. I said, "How does that happen?" She said, "It shouldn't." From down the hallway, the elevator dinged. We both looked. A man stepped out carrying a black duffel bag. He was maybe late 30s, wearing a green rain jacket and a baseball cap. He did not look at us right away. He looked down the hall, then at the room numbers. The clerk went still. The man stopped outside room 210 and looked at his key sleeve. Then he looked at us. "Problem?" he asked. The clerk said, "Can I help you?" He smiled without showing teeth. "I'm trying to get to my room." "What room?" He lifted the sleeve slightly. 214. My hand tightened on the door. The clerk said, "That room is occupied." He looked at me then. "I know." Nobody said anything for a second. Then he laughed softly and shook his head. "Front desk gave me the wrong card earlier. I left my bag in there." I looked behind me. There was no bag in my room except mine. The clerk said, "You need to come downstairs." He did not move. "My bag is in the room," he said. "No, it isn't," I said. He looked at me like I had interrupted something private. "You sure?" The clerk said louder, "Sir, come downstairs." He took one step toward us. The clerk backed up without meaning to. I saw it happen. She was scared too. I shut the door and latched it fully. Outside, I heard the clerk say, "You need to go to the lobby." His voice got lower. "I'm not talking to you." I grabbed my phone, my car keys, and my hospital badge. I left my suitcase. I left my scrubs. I left everything except what was on the nightstand. The room had one window, but it did not open more than a few inches. We were on the second floor anyway. The bathroom had no other exit. I did not call 911 from the room. I know that sounds strange, but I had this clear thought that if police came to the front, he would still be in the hallway, and I would still be in the room. I did not want to wait behind a cheap door while he argued outside it. Then my keycard lock beeped. Someone had put a card into my door. The deadbolt held. The latch held. The handle moved once. I stepped backward until I hit the bed. The man outside said, "I told you my bag's in there." The clerk said, "I'm calling the police." He said, "No, you're not." Then there was a sound like a struggle, not a fight, just shoes shifting and someone bumping the wall. I had to move. I opened the window and pushed it as far as it would go. Rain came in. Below was the flat roof over the hotel entrance, maybe 6 feet down from the window. Not ground level, but not impossible. I had never climbed out of a hotel window in my life. I was not athletic. I was tired and barefoot, but I could still hear him outside the door, and the lock beeped again. I got one leg through the window and scraped my knee on the track. I lowered myself onto the roof over the entrance and landed badly on my ankle. The roof was wet and covered in little stones. I crawled at first because I was afraid I would slip off the edge. Below me, under the awning, a family was unloading from a minivan. 2 parents, 3 kids, bags of fast food, everyone annoyed by the rain. The father looked up and saw me. I said, "Help me. Please." He did not ask if I was joking. He told his wife to take the kids back to the van, then stood under the edge of the roof and guided me down onto a concrete planter, then to the ground. I could barely stand on my ankle. The front desk clerk came running out a side door seconds later. Her cardigan was torn at the shoulder. She was crying, but she was on the phone with 911. The man in the green jacket did not come out the front. He left through a stairwell at the other end of the hall and got into a dark pickup parked behind the diner next door. The father from the minivan saw it pull away. He got part of the plate, but not enough. The police came after that. So did the night manager, who looked like he had been woken from a deep sleep and dropped into a nightmare. They searched room 214. My suitcase was still there. Nothing had been taken, but there was something in the room that had not been there when I checked in. On the floor behind the curtain, they found a black duffel bag. I had checked the curtains when I came in, but I had not pulled them all the way back. The bag was flat enough to sit behind the heavy fabric. Inside were men's clothes, a phone charger, duct tape, and a hotel keycard machine cleaning card. Not a machine. Not tools. Just a cleaning card used by staff to test the reader. The police did not tell me every detail, but the manager told me enough while I sat in the lobby with ice on my ankle. The 6:12 p.m. check-in had been created from the front desk terminal when the earlier clerk went to the bathroom. The lobby camera showed a man in a cap step behind the desk for less than a minute. He did not take money. He did not take keys from a hook. He used the computer just long enough to mark 214 as occupied. Then he left. My reservation came later, and the system glitch confused the clerk because my booking overwrote part of the fake check-in, but not all of it. That was why she asked if I had already checked in. The room phone call had come from the hallway phone near the ice machine. I had not even noticed there was a phone there. The envelope under the door was never fully explained. The clerk thought maybe he put it there to scare me out of the room, so he could follow me or get me into the hall. The police thought maybe someone else saw him and tried to warn me without getting involved. No one admitted to writing it. The man was not caught while I was there. Maybe he was later for something else. I never got an update that made me feel better. The hotel refunded my stay, which felt like a joke. They also offered me reward points. I did not respond. I slept the rest of that night in the minivan family's extra room at a different hotel. They were in town for a youth hockey tournament. The mother gave me socks because mine were still upstairs in 214. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed in that second hotel, wearing a stranger's socks, thinking about how close I had come to opening my door because a man said he had left a bag. That was the line he picked because it was simple. It made me the rude one if I refused. It made him sound inconvenienced instead of dangerous. I finished the hospital contract, but I did not stay in cheap hotels after that. I budgeted for safer ones. I checked behind curtains. I checked trash cans. I asked front desks to say my room number quietly and never write it where someone else could see. The thing I learned was not that every hotel is unsafe. Most are just tired buildings full of tired people. But when you are far from home, tired becomes dangerous. Cheap can cost more than money, and a stranger does not need you to trust him for long. Sometimes he only needs you to open the door once. Story 7. I was staying in my aunt's house in South Omaha for 3 nights while she was in Kansas City helping my cousin after surgery. I was 26, working as a receptionist at a dental office, and I had just moved back in with my parents after a bad breakup. My aunt offered me $200 to sleep at her place, water the plants, and bring in her mail. I needed the money, and I also liked the idea of being alone somewhere quiet. The first weird thing happened before it was even dark. I was in the kitchen making boxed mac and cheese, standing there in socks, when I heard the metal flap on the mail slot lift and drop. It was such a normal sound that I almost ignored it. My aunt's house had an old mail slot built into the front door. It made that same sharp click every time the carrier pushed envelopes through it. But it was almost 7 at night. The mail had already come. I turned down the burner and walked to the front room. There was one envelope on the floor. It was white, no stamp, no address, no return name. Just my aunt's first name written in pen. Denise. I didn't open it at first. I picked it up, felt that there was paper inside, and called my aunt. She answered right away, sounding busy. "What's up? Someone just put an envelope through your mail slot." "What kind of envelope?" "Plain white. It just says Denise." She paused, then said, "Maybe from the church. They drop stuff off sometimes." "At 7? "I don't know. Just set it on the table." That was the kind of thing my aunt would say. She was very practical. She knew every neighbor on the block and always made everything sound harmless. So I set the envelope by the fruit bowl and went back to the stove. About 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps on the porch. Not quick footsteps, slow ones. The porch boards creaked under someone's weight. Then the mail slot lifted again. This time I was already facing the front room. A folded piece of paper slid through and dropped onto the floor. I didn't move right away. I watched the bottom of the door. I could see a shadow from someone's shoes outside. They stayed there. The person didn't knock. They didn't ring the bell. They just stood on the porch after sliding the note inside. I walked quietly to the door, but stayed a few feet back. "Can I help you?" I called. A man's voice said, "Is Denise home?" His voice was calm. Older. Maybe 40s or 50s. "No," I said. "She's not available." "How long will she be gone?" I didn't like that question. but I also didn't want to sound scared in someone else's house. I worked front desk at a dental office. I was used to weird questions, rude patients, strangers wanting personal information. I knew how to keep my voice flat. I can take a message. There was a little laugh from the other side of the door. No, that's okay. I'll come back. His shoes moved away from the door. The porch creaked again. I waited until I heard the steps go down. Then I looked through the front window. A man in a dark green jacket walked across the lawn instead of using the sidewalk. He got into a gray minivan parked 2 houses down. The van pulled away with its headlights off for the first few seconds, then the lights came on at the corner. I told myself it was probably a neighbor. My aunt was active at church, volunteered at a food pantry, and helped people with rides. People were always dropping things off. The second note on the floor said, "Tell Denise I found it." That was all. I sent a picture of both notes to my aunt. She called me this time. "Lock both doors," she said. Her voice had changed. "What is it?" "Just lock them. Front and back." I locked the front deadbolt, then the chain. I walked to the kitchen and checked the back door. It was already locked, but the little curtain over the window had been pushed to one side. I didn't remember doing that. My aunt asked me to read the notes again. I did. She was quiet for a second. "There was a man who came by last month asking about my garage." "What man?" "I don't know. He said he used to do work for the previous owner." I told him I didn't need anything. He kept asking if I lived alone. "You didn't tell me that." "I forgot about it." He hadn't come back. I looked at the back door again. The kitchen light was bright, so all I could see in the window was my own reflection. "Should I leave?" I asked. My aunt said, "Maybe just go stay with your mom." I almost did. I had my keys in my hand. Then I looked around the kitchen. My aunt's plants were on the counter. Her mail was on the table. My overnight bag was upstairs. I felt stupid leaving because of 2 notes and a man asking questions. I was 26, not a kid. I had been trying hard not to act helpless after my breakup. I didn't want to call my parents and say I got scared house sitting. I told her I'd stay, but keep everything locked. She told me to call her if anything else happened. For the next hour, nothing did. I ate, washed the pot, and sat in the living room watching a cooking show with the volume low. The house was old, so it made noises all the time. Pipes clicked. The fridge buzzed. A branch scraped the upstairs window when the wind moved. Around 9:30, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't know. "Is Denise there?" I stared at it for a while. Then another message came. "Tell her I found the thing from the basement." My aunt didn't have a basement. She had a crawl space under the house, but no basement. That small detail made the whole thing feel different. It meant the person didn't really know her house, but wanted me to think they did. I called my aunt again. She said, "Block the number. I'm calling my neighbor across the street." I told her not to make a big deal out of it. I was embarrassed. I could hear myself doing it, trying to make it smaller than it was. Then I heard something at the back of the house. Not a knock. A soft metallic sound. I lowered the phone and listened. It came again. Click. Then another. Click. Like someone was pressing buttons. I walked toward the kitchen and stopped before I reached the doorway. The back door had a keypad lock. My aunt installed it because she always lost keys. She had given me the code when I arrived. 4 numbers. Easy. The keypad lit up blue outside the glass. Someone was standing on the back steps, trying codes. I backed away so fast I hit my shoulder on the wall. My aunt was still talking on the phone. "What happened?" "Someone's at the back door." "Get away from the door." The keypad beeped again. Wrong code. Then again. Wrong code. I ran upstairs with my phone, but halfway up I remembered the key hook by the front door. My aunt kept all her keys on a little wooden hook beside the entry table. House key, car key, garage key, everything. The hook was close to the mail slot. I turned and looked down the stairs. The front door was still locked, but the mail slot moved. A thin black rod slid through it. At first I didn't understand what I was seeing. It came in slowly, with a little hook at the end. It moved left and right in the air like someone fishing. It was reaching for the keys. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just ran down the stairs, grabbed the whole key ring from the hook, and yanked it off so hard the hook cracked loose from the wall. The rod froze. Then it pulled back through the mail slot. The house went quiet. My aunt was yelling my name through the phone. I whispered, "They're trying to get in. Go to the upstairs bathroom. Lock the door. Call 911. I hung up and called 911 while moving. I went into the upstairs bathroom, shut the door, locked it, and sat on the edge of the bathtub. The dispatcher asked for the address. I gave it wrong the first time because my voice was shaking, then corrected it. The back keypad beeped again downstairs. Then I heard a door handle turn. Not the back one, the front. Someone was trying the front door now. The dispatcher told me officers were being sent. "Can you see the people?" she asked. "No." "Are they inside?" "No." As soon as I said no, the house made a heavy thump. Something hit the back door. I covered my mouth with my hand. It felt stupid, like something from a movie, but I was afraid they would hear me breathing through the ceiling. Another thump. Then a man's voice yelled, "Denise, open the door." He didn't sound angry. That was worse. He sounded annoyed, like he had a right to be there and we were wasting his time. I whispered to the dispatcher. He's saying my aunt's name. "Stay where you are." Then another voice, lower, said something I couldn't make out. There were at least two of them. For about a minute, they kept moving around the house. I could hear steps on the back deck, then gravel beside the house, then the front porch again. One of them tried the mail slot, but I had the keys with me. The rod came in and tapped against the wall where the keys had been. Tap, tap, tap. Then everything stopped. I thought maybe they had left. The dispatcher kept asking me to stay on the line. I was sitting in the bathtub with my knees pulled up, holding my phone with one hand and my aunt's keys with the other. Then I heard glass break downstairs. It wasn't a huge crash, more like a small pop and scattered pieces. Later I learned it was the little window in the back door. I heard someone reach inside and feel around for the lock. The deadbolt was too low to reach from that small window, but the chain at the top rattled. The person cursed quietly. I moved without thinking. The bathroom window was above the toilet and opened onto the small roof over the back mudroom. I climbed onto the toilet and shoved it open. Cold air came in. I could see the roof below, black shingles wet from earlier rain. The dispatcher told me not to climb out unless I had to. Then the bathroom doorknob turned. I still don't know if I forgot to lock it or if the old lock didn't catch. The knob moved halfway, stopped, then moved again. Someone was in the hallway. I pushed myself through the window. I scraped my hip and nearly dropped the phone. I landed on the mudroom roof on my hands and knees. The shingles were slick, and for a second I slid toward the gutter. I grabbed the window frame and held on. Inside, the bathroom door opened. A person stepped into the bathroom. I saw only a shoulder and an arm through the window. Dark sleeve. Gray glove. I let go and slid down the roof until my feet hit the gutter. It bent under me. I dropped into the narrow strip of grass between my aunt's house and the neighbor's fence. The fall knocked the air out of me. I didn't break anything, but my ankle twisted hard. I still had the phone. The dispatcher was saying, "Ma'am? Ma'am." I crawled behind the trash bins and then got up. I could hear movement inside the house above me. A kitchen light came on. I limped to the front sidewalk, staying low beside parked cars. A porch light flicked on across the street. An older man in a bathrobe opened his door and yelled, "Hey, what are you doing?" I didn't know if he was yelling at me or them. I shouted, "Call the police." He held up a phone and said, "I did." That voice, a real neighbor's voice, gave me enough strength to keep moving. I crossed the street and stood on his porch until the patrol cars came. The men were gone by then. They didn't catch them that night. The officers checked the house and found the broken back door window, scratches around the deadbolt, and dirty shoe prints on the kitchen floor. They also found something stuck under the front porch railing. It was a small folded piece of paper with my aunt's address written on it, and under that a note. "Lights off after 11. Niece there. Keys by door." That word, niece, bothered me more than anything. I wasn't her niece by blood. I called her aunt because she had been my mom's best friend forever. Someone had heard that from somewhere, or guessed, or watched us talk when she gave me the key that afternoon. The officer asked if I had posted about staying there. I said no. Then I remembered I had taken a picture of my aunt's old kitchen and put it on my Instagram story. Just a stupid picture of the yellow cabinets with the caption, "House sitting and eating like a raccoon." My profile was public because I barely used it. The picture showed the fruit bowl, the back door, and the key hook in the corner. The first envelope had my aunt's name, but the second note and the text were for me. They were trying to figure out who was inside and how easy I would be to scare out or talk into opening the door. A few days later, my aunt called me after speaking with the police again. They believed the men had been hitting older houses in that area where people posted travel photos or where mail sat out too long. They never found out exactly who sent the text. The number was from an internet calling service, not a real phone account. I stayed with my parents after that. My aunt got rid of the mail slot and moved her keys to a drawer. I deleted half my social media and made the rest private. The part one still think about is how close those keys were to the door. I had walked past them 5 or 6 times that night without thinking. To me, they were just keys on a hook. To whoever was outside, they were the whole house. I don't open doors for voices anymore. I don't answer questions through locks. And I don't post where I am while I'm still there. A locked door only works if you stop helping strangers get around it. Story 8. Every Thursday night, after my closing shift at a sandwich shop in Mesa, Arizona, I did my laundry at the cheapest laundromat I could find. I was 19, taking community college classes in the morning, working 30 hours a week, and living in a tiny room I rented from a woman who didn't let tenants use her washer. I was always tired. I was also always trying to save money, so I went late when the machines were empty and I could use the big dryers without waiting. The laundromat sat between a smoke shop and a tax office in a strip mall that looked closed even when it was open. There was a taco place on the corner, a bus stop near the street, and a gas station across the parking lot. The first strange thing was a man watching the vending machine. Not using it, watching it. I had just loaded my clothes into washer number 6. It was a front loader with a cracked handle and a piece of blue tape on the side. I put in quarters, poured detergent, and turned around to sit near the folding tables. That was when I saw him standing near the snack machine with his hands in the pockets of a brown hoodie. He was maybe 35, thin beard, work boots, baseball cap pulled low. He wasn't looking at the snacks. He was looking at the reflection in the glass. At me. I looked away first because I didn't want to start anything. At that time in my life, I was still the kind of person who apologized when someone bumped into me. I had grown up being told to be polite, to not assume the worst, to not make a scene. Also, the place wasn't empty. A woman with 2 kids was folding towels near the front window. An older man was asleep in a chair by the dryers. The attendant, Rosa, was in the little office behind the counter with the door open. So I sat down and checked my phone. The man bought a pack of peanut butter crackers from the vending machine. Then he walked out without eating them. I thought that was weird, but not scary. 20 minutes later, he came back. This time he had a laundry basket. There were no clothes in it. He walked straight to the change machine, fed in $1, collected 4 quarters, and left again. Rosa noticed too. She leaned out from the office and watched him go. "Do you know him?" she asked me. "No." She nodded once and went back inside. My washer had 15 minutes left. I kept telling myself maybe he worked nearby and needed change. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe the basket had clothes earlier and I just didn't see them. The woman with the kids left before my washer finished. The older man woke up and walked out with 1 small bag of clothes. Then it was just me, Rosa, and a couple dryers spinning with nobody standing near them. The strip mall got quieter after 10. The lights outside were bad. Half of them flickered. The glass front of the laundromat reflected the inside, so it was hard to see the parking lot unless you walked right up to the window and looked out. I moved my clothes to a dryer near the office. I chose that dryer on purpose. Rosa looked up from her phone. "You okay, Mija?" "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She smiled a little. "Me too." While the dryer ran, I sat close to the counter. I put 1 earbud in but didn't play anything. I just wanted to look busy. At 10:18, the man came back. No basket now. He opened the door and stood just inside. The bell over the door jingled, then stopped. He looked at the machines, then at the floor, then at Rosa. "Bathroom working?" he asked. Rosa said, "Customers only." He held up the peanut butter crackers. "I bought something." "This is not a gas station," she said. He didn't argue. He looked past her toward the hallway where the bathroom was. Then he looked at me. "You got a phone charger?" I shook my head. He said, "What kind of phone?" I don't have one. It was a stupid lie because my phone was in my hand. He saw it. Rosa saw it. I saw him see it. He smiled, but it was small and quick. You sure? Rosa stood up from her chair. She said no. The man raised his hands like he was joking. Okay. Damn. He walked out again. Rosa locked the door behind him. I stared at the lock. I thought you were open until midnight, I said. We are, she said. But I can unlock it for customers. She tried to sound normal, but she kept her eyes on the parking lot. My clothes had 28 minutes left in the dryer. I wanted to leave them there and go, but that was almost every piece of clothing I owned. Work shirts, jeans, underwear, my only decent hoodie. I didn't have money to replace anything. I told myself I could wait 28 minutes. Rosa was there. The door was locked. The gas station was across the lot. About 10 minutes passed. Then a white sedan pulled into the parking lot and stopped 2 rows from the door. Its lights stayed on. The driver didn't get out. Rosa saw it. She came out of the office and stood beside me. The sedan backed into a spot facing the laundromat. I couldn't see through the windshield because of the headlights. Is that him? I asked. Rosa said, maybe. The doorbell jingled. Not from someone coming in. From someone pulling on the locked door. The man in the hoodie was outside again, one hand on the handle. He looked in at us like he didn't understand why it was locked. Then he tapped the glass with one knuckle. Rosa shook her head. We're closed, she called. He pointed at the hours sign. Rosa said nothing. He leaned close to the glass, cupped one hand around his mouth, and said, I left my basket. Rosa said, no, you didn't. He pointed toward the back machines. My basket's back there. There is no basket. He stopped pretending then. His face went plain. No smile. No confusion. Just flat. He stepped away from the door and pulled out his phone. The white sedan flashed its headlights once. Rosa's hand moved to the counter. She picked up the store phone. The man outside didn't leave. He walked along the front windows, slow, looking in at the washers and dryers. When he got to the end window near the folding tables, he stopped and stared at my dryer. I knew it was mine because my green work shirt was pressed against the glass, spinning and falling. He had been watching which machine I used. The dryer still had 11 minutes. Rosa whispered, go in the office. I got up and went behind the counter. The office was small and smelled like coffee and bleach. There was a camera monitor on the desk showing 4 black and white views. Front door. Back hallway. Machines. Parking lot. The parking lot camera was grainy, but I could see the white sedan. There was someone in the passenger seat too. The man in the hoodie walked out of frame. Then he appeared on the back hallway camera. Inside. I pointed at the screen but couldn't speak. Rosa looked and said, no. There was a back door near the bathroom that employees use for trash. It was supposed to stay locked. The man was standing just inside that hallway, holding the door open with his foot. He had gotten in from the back. He didn't rush. He didn't act drunk or angry. He just stood there like he was waiting for us to notice him. Rosa grabbed a metal ruler from the desk like it was a weapon. It was almost funny, but nobody laughed. She told me, stay behind me. The man walked from the hallway into the laundromat. Rosa stepped out of the office and yelled, you need to leave. He looked at her, then at me. I just need to talk to her. I don't know you, I said. He ignored that. You dropped something. No, I didn't. He reached into his hoodie pocket and held up a small set of keys. For half a second, I thought they were mine. Then I touched my pocket and felt my own key ring. He watched me check. That tiny reaction told him something. He knew I was scared. He knew I was young. He knew I didn't have anyone with me. Rosa said, put it down and leave. He said, I'm trying to be nice. Behind him, the white sedan rolled slowly closer to the front door. Rosa backed up toward the office. The man's eyes moved to the counter phone. Don't call, he said. Rosa said, I already did. She hadn't. I knew she hadn't because I had seen her hold the phone but not dial. But she said it with enough confidence that I almost believed her. The man looked at the front windows, then at the dryer, then back at us. His voice stayed low. Come outside for a second. Nobody answered. He took one step closer. Rosa lifted the ruler. It was ridiculous. A woman in her 50s with a ruler against a man who probably had 50 pounds on her. But she didn't move away from me. The bell over the front door jingled again. This time it was someone with a key. A delivery driver from the taco place came in holding 2 foil containers in a plastic bag. He was a heavy guy with a gray beard and a hairnet still on. He stopped when he saw the 3 of us. Rosa said fast, "Miguel, stay." The man in the hoodie turned toward him. Miguel looked at the man, then at us, then out at the white sedan. "What's going on?" The man said, "Nothing." Rosa said, "Call police." Miguel didn't ask questions. He took his phone out and started dialing. The man in the hoodie walked toward the back hallway. Miguel moved to block him from going deeper inside. Not in a dramatic way. He just stepped sideways and stood there. The man looked at him for 2 seconds. Then he pushed through the front door instead. The white sedan pulled up near the curb. The passenger door opened before he even reached it. He got in, and the car drove off fast, without headlights until it hit the street. My knees gave out after that. I sat on the office floor, between a mop bucket and a stack of receipt paper, while Rosa locked both doors and Miguel stood at the front window. The police didn't arrive until maybe 12 minutes later. By then my dryer had stopped and my clothes were just sitting there. The officers took statements from all 3 of us. They checked the back door. The latch wasn't broken. Someone had wedged a folded piece of cardboard into the strike plate, so it looked closed but didn't catch. Rosa said she had taken trash out earlier around 9. He could have slipped it in then, or the person with him could have. The fake keys he held up were never found. He probably took them. Rosa showed the officers the camera footage. That was the part that made me feel sick. The man had first entered at 9:41, before I noticed him. He walked past me while I was loading my washer, glanced into my open laundry bag, and looked at the name tag on my work shirt. Then he left. When he returned with the empty basket, he didn't use any machines. He went straight to the back hallway for 8 seconds, just long enough to mess with the door. The footage also showed the white sedan circling the strip mall twice while I was inside. It paused near the bus stop both times. One officer asked me how I got there. I said I walked from my rooming house, about 15 minutes away. He asked if I had told anyone at work I did laundry there. I said no. Then I remembered my shirt. My work shirt had the sandwich shop logo on the front, and my first name stitched above it. It was in the washer. He had seen it before it went in. Rosa also found something under the folding table near where I had been sitting. It was a cheap phone with no case, dead battery, and no SIM card. The officer bagged it, but I never heard if they got anything from it. The laundromat owner copied the footage for the police and banned the man. Not that a sign would stop anyone. Rosa told me later that the same white sedan had parked outside 2 other nights that month, always close to closing time, but nobody had connected it to anything because it never stayed long. They never arrested him, at least not for what happened to me. For a while after that, I stopped doing laundry at night. I asked my landlord if I could pay extra to use her washer, and for once I didn't care if she thought I was dramatic. She said yes after I showed her the police report number. I still hate laundromats. Not because they're dirty or loud, because they feel like places where everybody is waiting. Waiting on machines, waiting on rides, waiting on people to stop paying attention. The scariest part wasn't that he followed me in. It was how normal he looked while setting everything up. Buying crackers, asking for change, pretending to need a bathroom. Little things that made him look like a customer until he didn't need to look like one anymore. Public places can make you feel safe because the lights are on and other people are nearby. But safety is not the same thing as being seen. Story 9. I still have the screenshot of the message that sent me there, even though I deleted the rental app from my phone the next morning. It said, "Cabin is having water trouble. My brother will meet you at the shop and take you to the room. Same price. Sorry for inconvenience." At the time, I was too tired to question it the way I should have. I was 28, a lab tech from Jacksonville, driving alone to a wedding outside Asheville, North Carolina. The wedding was for a college friend, not someone I was close enough with to split a nice hotel room. I had just ended a long relationship, my bank account was ugly, and I didn't want to show up to the wedding looking like I was falling apart. So I booked the cheapest private room I could find within 40 minutes of the venue. The listing was for a converted room over an old bait shop near a lake. The pictures were plain but clean. Bed, bathroom, microwave, little porch. The host had good reviews, mostly from fishermen and hikers. Check-in was supposed to be self-service with a lockbox. I arrived around 11:30 at night after 8 hours of driving. The area was darker than I expected. No streetlights once I left the main road. Just trees, gravel, and those small reflective mailbox numbers that appear in your headlights and disappear behind you. The bait shop was closed. It had a faded sign with a cartoon fish on it and a soda machine out front that wasn't plugged in. There was a staircase on the side leading to the upstairs room. I parked beside a rusted ice freezer and took a picture of my odometer because I was planning to track gas money. Then my phone buzzed with the message. Cabin is having water trouble. My brother will meet you at the shop and take you to the room. Same price. Sorry for inconvenience. The message came through the rental app under the host's name, Karen. I was annoyed, not scared. That's important. I was sweaty, hungry, and embarrassed because I couldn't afford somewhere better. A normal person with more money might have canceled and found a hotel. I told myself cheap places came with problems. I told myself the host probably owned more than one room. I replied, I'm already here. The answer came almost immediately. He is coming now. Stay by car. I didn't like stay by car. It felt like something you say to a dog. But again, I was tired. I had spent the last hour driving mountain roads in the dark with no signal in places. I wanted a shower and a bed. A pickup truck came down the gravel road about 5 minutes later. It was an older blue Ford with one headlight dimmer than the other. It pulled up beside me, but left enough distance that I couldn't see the driver's face clearly. The engine stayed running. A man got out. He was maybe in his early 40s. Tall, soft around the middle, wearing jeans and a black rain jacket. He had a baseball cap on and held his phone in one hand. You Karen's guest? He asked. I said, yeah. Emily? My name is Emma. I corrected him. He looked at his phone and said, right. Emma. Sorry. Long night. That was the first thing I should have taken seriously. But people misread names all the time. My own dentist office spelled my name wrong on appointment reminders for years. He pointed down the road behind him. Water line busted up there. She's got you at the other place. It's like 6 minutes. Is it on the app? I asked. He tapped his phone without turning the screen toward me. Yeah, she sent it. My phone buzzed again. Go with him. Better room. Sorry again. I looked at the message. It was inside the app. Same host photo. Same thread. That made me feel stupid for doubting him. I said, can you send me the address? He smiled, but only with his mouth. No service out there. Just follow me. I didn't want to follow a stranger down a road with no service. But I also didn't want to sleep in my car outside a closed bait shop. I thought about calling the host through the app, but the call button just spun and didn't connect. The man saw me hesitating. He said, you don't have to come. But that room up there has no water. He pointed at the stairs. Go check if you want. I did. That's one of the details I keep coming back to. He didn't stop me from checking the original room. He acted like he had nothing to hide. I walked up the outside stairs with my phone flashlight on. The lockbox was attached to the railing. I put in the code from my booking. It opened. The key was inside. That calmed me down more than anything else. If this was some random scam, how would the lockbox code work? I unlocked the upstairs room and stepped in. It looked exactly like the photos, except the bed had no sheets. The mattress was bare. There were towels folded on a chair, but they were damp when I touched them. In the bathroom, the sink handle turned, but no water came out. The man called from below, see? I locked the room and came back down. He was standing by his truck now, scrolling on his phone. Other places nicer, he said. Queen bed. Shower works. Is Karen there? No. She's home with her kid. That also sounded normal. I got in my car and followed him. For the first few minutes, we stayed on a paved road. Then he turned onto gravel. Then onto a narrower road that looked more like a driveway between trees. My phone signal dropped to 1 bar, then no service. I remember gripping the steering wheel hard and telling myself I was being dramatic. The road ended at a small house with a tin roof and a detached shed. There was a porch light on. A bug zapper clicked somewhere in the dark. The house looked old, but not abandoned. There was a flower pot by the steps and a clean doormat. The man parked near the shed and motioned for me to park behind him. I didn't. I parked facing the driveway, so I could leave without backing up. He noticed. "City habit?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to laugh. He unlocked the front door and stepped inside first. I stayed on the porch with my suitcase. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and old wood. The room he showed me was just inside to the left. Bed made. Lamp on. Window unit humming. There was a bathroom across the hall. It really did look nicer than the bait shop room. He handed me a key on a plastic tag that said 3. "Bathroom door sticks," he said. "Don't force it. Wi-Fi passwords on the dresser." I asked, "Do I lock the front door?" He shrugged. "Up to you. I'll be out back." "Out back?" "Shop's behind the shed. I got work." I didn't like the idea of him staying on the property, but it was late and the room had a lock. I told myself lots of hosts lived near rentals. I had stayed in houses where the owner slept downstairs. He left through the kitchen. I heard a door close somewhere in the back. I locked my bedroom door and sat on the bed without unpacking. The Wi-Fi name was handwritten on a card. Lake Guest 3. The password worked. I messaged my mom. Got to rental. Bad service, but I'm okay. It didn't send at first. Then it went through on Wi-Fi. I tried to open the rental app, but it loaded slowly. When it finally opened, the thread with Karen was still there. The last message said, "Hope new room is okay." I typed, "Can you confirm this address?" Before I sent it, another message appeared. "You can pay cleaning fee cash in morning. $40. That was the second thing I ignored too long. The listing said all fees were included. I didn't like extra charges, and I was too broke to be casual about $40. I wrote back, "I already paid through the app." No answer. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps outside my window. Not near the porch. Right outside the bedroom window. Slow steps in gravel. I turned off the lamp. The window had blinds and thin curtains. I could see a shape pass by, not close enough to touch the glass, but close enough to block the porch light for a second. I stayed still until the footsteps moved away. Then my phone buzzed. "Don't worry if you hear walking. Just me." It was from the host thread. That message should have made me feel better. It did the opposite, because I had not asked about walking. Whoever sent it knew I had heard it. I went to the dresser and looked at the Wi-Fi card again. Under it was a small notebook with a pen. Most pages were blank. The first page had a list of names and amounts. Shane 60, Pete 40, Maya 40, cash only. Emma? My name was at the bottom. Not typed, written. I took a picture of the page. Then I picked up my suitcase and put it on the bed. I didn't want to stay there anymore. I didn't want to run either, because my car was outside and I didn't know where he was. The bedroom window faced the side yard, not the driveway. The front door was down the hall. I thought about calling 911 through Wi-Fi, but I had no exact address. The rental app still showed the bait shop location, not this house. I could have described the road, maybe, but I wasn't confident. My weakness in that moment was embarrassment. I hated the idea of calling police and having it turn out to be some awkward country rental arrangement. I hated the idea of being the broke girl who booked a cheap room and then panicked because it looked cheap. So I made a smaller plan. I would tell him I needed something from my car, get in, and drive away. I put on my shoes, kept my suitcase in the room so it wouldn't look like I was leaving, and opened the bedroom door. The hallway was dark except for the bathroom light. The back of the house was quiet. I walked to the front door. It had a deadbolt and a knob lock. I unlocked both. The door didn't open. I pulled harder. It moved half an inch and stopped. There was something on the outside, a latch or bar, something that had been put across it after he left. I stood there with my hand on the knob, not breathing. Then a man's voice came from the kitchen. "Everything okay?" He was inside the house, not out back. I turned around. He was standing in the kitchen doorway holding a mug. No jacket now, just a gray t-shirt. His cap was gone, and his hair was flattened from wearing it. I said, "I need my charger from the car." He took one sip from the mug. "What kind?" "What?" "Phone." "What kind of charger?" "USB-C." He nodded slowly. "I got one. I'd rather use mine." He looked at the front door, then back at me. "You leaving?" I forced myself to sound irritated, not scared. "No. I'm exhausted. I just need my charger." He said, "I'll get it." I said, "I don't want you going in my car." The house was quiet after that. He set the mug down on the counter. "You're making this weird." I almost apologized. The word was in my mouth. "Sorry. Just habit. Just panic dressed up as politeness." Instead I said, "Open the door." He didn't move. "Karen knows I'm here," he said. That sentence made no sense as comfort. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message from my mom, delayed from earlier. "Send address when you can." The screen lit my face. His eyes dropped to it. He said, "Phone away." I backed down the hall, away from him, toward my bedroom. But I didn't go in. I went past it to the bathroom. He followed. Not fast. That was what made it feel real. He wasn't chasing me. He was controlling how fast I could move. I stepped into the bathroom and locked the door. The lock was a cheap push button. I knew it wouldn't hold. He tapped once. "Come on." I looked around. Tiny bathroom. Sink, toilet, shower with a plastic curtain. A small frosted window over the toilet, cracked open an inch. The bathroom door handle turned. I climbed onto the toilet and shoved the window up. It made a squealing sound. Outside was the side yard and the gravel strip next to the house. It was a bad drop, maybe 6 feet, but not impossible. The bathroom door shook once, then stopped. His voice came through the door, lower now. "You don't know where you are." That was true. I pushed myself through the window head first, caught my shirt on the latch, tore it, and dropped onto the gravel hard enough to skin both knees through my jeans. For a second all I could hear was the bug zapper and my own breathing. Then the bathroom light went out above me. I ran. Not to my car. That was the one smart thing I did. My car was parked near his truck, and I didn't know if he had blocked it or taken something from it. I ran toward the road we had come in on. Behind me a door slammed. He yelled something, but I didn't turn around. The gravel road felt longer going out than it had coming in. It curved through trees with no lights. I used my phone flashlight for 2 seconds, then turned it off because it made me visible. I ran with one hand out in front of me, hitting branches and stumbling in ruts. A vehicle started behind me. The truck. Headlights bounced through the trees. I left the road and pushed into the brush. I crouched behind a fallen log, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. The truck rolled past slowly. One headlight dim. Blue Ford. The passenger window was down. He wasn't yelling anymore. He was listening. The truck stopped about 20 yards past me. Reverse lights came on. I crawled backward through leaves until my shoulder hit a tree. My phone was in my hand, but there was still no service. I opened the camera and started recording, not because I thought it would save me, but because I wanted proof if he found me. The truck backed up slowly. Then another set of headlights appeared at the far end of the road. A larger vehicle. Loud engine. The blue Ford stopped. The larger vehicle came closer. It was a delivery truck, one of those box trucks with a company logo on the side. It drove past the Ford and kept going toward the main road. I don't know what made me do it. I stood up and ran after it. I came out of the trees waving both arms. The delivery truck braked so hard the back doors rattled. The driver leaned out and shouted, "What the hell?" I ran to his door and said, "Please don't leave me here." He looked past me at the blue Ford, which was still sitting in the road. "Get in," he said. I climbed into the passenger side, shaking and bleeding through one knee. The driver locked the doors and started moving before I even closed mine all the way. The blue Ford didn't follow. The driver's name was Aaron. He delivered bread to gas stations and small stores before dawn. He kept asking if I knew the address. I didn't. I showed him the bait shop listing. He knew it. "That's back by Mercer's," he said. "But you weren't at Mercer's." He drove me to a gas station about 15 minutes away and told the clerk to call the sheriff. I sat in the back office wrapped in a stained employee hoodie while the clerk cleaned my knees with paper towels. The sheriff's deputy who came wasn't dismissive, but I could tell he was trying to understand what I was saying. Rental app. Bait shop. Water problem. Brother. Second house. No address. I showed him the messages. He took my phone and frowned. The messages were gone. Not the whole thread. Just the ones about the water trouble, the brother, and the cleaning fee. The last message visible from Karen was the normal check-in instruction from the day before. I thought I was going to sound insane. Then I remembered the pictures. I had the photo of the notebook with my name in it. I had the video from the woods, mostly black screen and my breathing, but near the end it caught the blue Ford's headlight and part of the license plate. Aaron also gave a statement. He had seen the truck stopped on the road and me come out of the trees. The deputy drove with another officer to the bait shop first. The upstairs room was unlocked. The mattress was still bare. The water worked when they tried it. The lockbox code had been changed. They found my car still parked beside the ice freezer. Nothing was missing, but the driver's door was not fully closed. I am sure I closed it when I got out. They did not find the house that night. That sounds impossible, but those roads branch in strange ways, and I had followed him in the dark while tired. Aaron knew the main area, not every private lane. The deputy said some roads back there weren't marked well or were old service roads. The rental platform contacted me 2 days later. The message said the host's account had been accessed from an unrecognized device and that my reservation had been affected by unauthorized communication. They refunded the stay and offered a coupon, which made me laugh in a way that scared my mom. Karen, the real host, called me after the sheriff contacted her. She was crying. She said she had never sent a brother, never owned another room, and never asked for cash fees. She did have water in the bait shop room. She had changed the lockbox code that morning because the sheriff told her to. The blue Ford's plate from my video belonged to a truck that had been sold for parts 6 months earlier. The partial plate didn't lead to anyone. The house was never confirmed, at least not to me. The deputy said they checked several properties and spoke with people in the area, but nobody admitted to anything. I believe someone local knew which rentals had late check-ins and bad signal. I believe they used the app account to catch people tired, alone, and too embarrassed to make trouble. My suitcase was found 3 weeks later in a ditch about 5 miles from the bait shop. Most of my clothes were still inside. My makeup bag was gone. So was the printed wedding invitation with the venue address on it. I skipped the wedding. I drove home in daylight with Aaron's bread truck ahead of me for the first 30 miles because he insisted. He said he had daughters. He didn't say much else. Now I pay more for boring hotels with front desks. I send addresses before I arrive. I don't follow people to better rooms. I don't care how tired I am or how rude I seem.